Do you play the mridanga, Abai? Yeah? Why don't you grab the mridanga? What's it sound like? Is it okay? What about this one here? That's a good one, that one. Usually. You can reach? Yeah. Are you left-handed? Okay. What does that mean if you're left-handed? What? What's that? What did he say? Right. What is he, left-handed or right-handed? Why do you do that? Why do you do that? Because you the fancy rhythms are played with your right hand, aren't they? Anyway, I'm not going to try and work it out. If you can play and it's okay, it sounds good, then I don't care what hand you use. One has to be practical, huh? Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Brajadana Ranjana Jamuna Ravana-chari Jamuna Ravana-chari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tiravana Chari Jamuna Tiravana Chari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivrajakacharya Ashto Tadasata Śrīmad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Grantaraj Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki Nitai Gaura Premanandi Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vishtai Bhutale Smati Prabhu Janamani Namo Mishpadaya Krishna Vishtai Bhutale Smati Bhaktivedanta Swami Janamani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharani Namaste Sunyavadi Pasatya Desatani. Are there any tissues there, Aboy? Are there any tissues there? Tissue box? No. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're reading from Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, Canto 6, Prescribed Duties for Mankind, Chapter 11, The Transcendental Qualities of Vritrasura. Text number 23. Trivargikaya sas Vighatamasmat Trivargikaya sa Vighatamasmat Pate vitate purushasya shakra Tato numeyo bhagavat prasado Yodulabho kinchana gocharonyai Trivargikaya sa Vighatamasmat Pate vitate purushasya sakra Tato no meyo bhagavat prasado yo durlabho kinchana gocharo nyai Traivargikaya savighatamasmat Pati vitate purushasya shakra Tato no meyo bhagavat prasado Yodulabho kinchana gocharo nyai Traivargikaya savighatamasmat Pati vidate purushasya sakra Tato no meyo bhagavat prasado Yodulabho kinchana gocharo nyai Traivargikaya savighatamasmat Pati vidate purushasya shakra Tato no meyo bhagavat prasado Yodilabho kinchana gocharo nyai Traivargikaya savighatamasmat Pati vidate purushasya sakra Tato no meyo bhagavat prasado Yodulabho kinchana gocharo nyai Ladies? Traivargikaya savighatamasmat Pati vidate purushasya shakra Tato no meyo bhagavat prasado Yodulabho kinchana gocharo nyai Traivargikaya savighatamasmat Pati vidate purushasya shakra Tato no meyo bhagavat prasado Yodulabho kinchana gocharo nyai Traivargikaya savighatamasmat Pati vidate purushasya chakra Tato no meyo bhagavat prasado Yodulabho kinchana gocharo nyai Traivargika for the three objectives, namely religiosity, economic development, and satisfaction of the senses. Ayasa of endeavour, vighatam the ruin, asmat our, pattihi Lord, vidhate, performs, purushasya, of a devotee, shakra, O Indra, tattaha, whereby, anumeyaha, to be inferred, bhagavat prasadaha, the special mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yaha, which, durlabha, very difficult to obtain. Akinchana gocharaha, within the reach of the unalloyed devotee. Anyai, by others who aspire for material happiness. Our Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, forbids his devotees to endeavour uselessly for religion, economic development and sense gratification. O Indra, one can thus infer how kind the Lord is. Such mercy is obtainable only by unalloyed devotees, not by persons who aspire for material gains. Purport: there are four objectives in human life, namely religiosity, dharma, economic development, artha, sense gratification, karma, and liberation, moksha, from the bondage of material existence. People generally aspire for religiosity, economic development, and sense gratification. But a devotee has no other desire than to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead, both in this life and in the next. The special mercy for the unalloyed devotee is that the Lord saves him from hard labour to achieve the results of religion, economic development and sense gratification. Of course, if one wants such benefits, the Lord certainly awards them. Indra, for example, although a devotee, was not much interested in release from material bondage. Instead, he desired sense gratification and a high standard of material happiness in the heavenly planets. Vritrasura, however, being an unalloyed devotee, aspired only to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, the Lord arranged for him to go back to Godhead after his bodily bondage was destroyed by Indra. Vritrasura requested Indra to release his thunderbolt against him as soon as possible, so that both he and Indra would benefit according to their proportionate advancement in devotional service. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurun Militam Jena Tasmaye Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahiyam Dadati Svapadantikam Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhayate Garim Yat Kripa Tamaham Bande Sri Gurum Dinataminam Paramananda Madhavam Sri Chaitanya Ishvaram. Okay, so what have we got here? Who are the two protagonists in this conversation? Who are the two personalities involved in this conversation? One of them is mentioned in the translation. Huh? Who's speaking? What was it? Sorry? Vritrasura and Indra. Yes, Vritrasura and Indra. And they both represent a certain type of devotee. Which do they represent? They're different. They're both different. Who's unalloyed devotee? Who's that?
Anybody who is in Krishna consciousness 100%.
Complete and unreserved.
Yes, but which one? Which one of the two? Indra or Vritrasura? Vritrasura. Yeah. This chapter is called The Transcendental Qualities of Vritrasura. Yep. And what about Indra? First of all, is Indra a devotee? Yes, he's a devotee. But what kind of a devotee? Mixed. Mixed devotee. Well, Prabhupada gives us some hints, some clues here. And so does the verse itself. Vritrasura is pointing out to Indra that the Lord discourages the pursuit of three things, right? First word, trivargika. Varga means what? Path or pursuit or activity, I guess you could say. There are three types of activities, or here objectives. Three objectives. And then they're described in the translation and in the purport. So what are they? What are they? What's the first one? Prabhupada mentions Trivargika. What's the first one? Starts with a D. Dharma. Yes, Dharma. Religiosity. What's the second one? Artha. Sense gratification. Yeah. And what's next? Yes, sense gratification. Calm. Now, this is what most people are interested in. Actually, in this day and age, most people are interested in artha and karma, and not so much dharma, actually, realistically. And the Bhagavatam describes these people as being not much better than what? Animals. Not much better than animals. Dvipada pashu. Because there's really not much interest in anything beyond material sense pleasures, material endeavours, material pursuits, to gain wealth so that one can enjoy happiness derived from sensual activities. Right? How do we do that? How do we pursue economic development? How do we do that? Go to work. Yeah. How many of you have got a job? Yeah, go to work, right? And what happens when you go to work? Yes, you get some money. Usually it's not enough, right? Never enough. Never enough money.
Well, that's what the job is.
Sorry?
A job, just off broke.
Yes. So this is not very elevated, because it's very similar to the behaviour of animals. That's why the Bhagavatam describes that mentality, or the persons who have that mentality, as being hogs, dogs, camels and asses, right? And describes them as karmis. Karmis. They work and they try to enjoy the results of their work. And what's the consequence? What's the consequence? We've just had a census. We're starting to see the results of the census. Right? What's one of the striking features of the census in terms of dharma? What is it? Anybody? Did you know that the census data is being released this week? Hands up, those of you who knew this. Okay, rightio. What was one of the striking results? What is it?
More millennials now than baby boomers.
Yeah, that was in the headlines. Yep. That means there's less people my age, and there's a reason for that. We're dying. And I don't think the millennials are getting more, they're just surviving longer because they're younger. But yes, okay, so that's interesting, but what else is interesting in terms of dharma? Yeah, and what about it? What about that number? What's that? It's increasing, yes. People believing in God is decreasing. Quite a lot. But what's another statistic? It might not be in the census, but another statistic which I would suggest is related. More people are suffering from anxiety and mental ill health, right? Mental ill health.
12%.
Yeah, it's going up. It's going up. Belief in God is going down. Mental ill health is going up. People are not peaceful, right? And of course, this is mentioned already. The Vedic Bhukti, Mukti, Siddhi, Kami, Atta, what is it? Ashanta. Not peaceful. Right? Whereas those who believe in God, they're generally, and who are practitioners, by the way, you can believe in God and still be full of anxiety. Look at Indra. He's a devotee, right? But he's in a lot of anxiety because he's worried about his position, his influence, his power, and whether he's going to lose it or not. Vritrasura represents all of the things that Indra's worried about because he's just had his kingdom restored, his position as the more or less the controller of the universe, restored, or certainly the king of the demigods, and their position has been re-established. And it had been usurped, it had been taken away by the demons. So he's worked very hard to get his position back. his power, his influence. And Vritrasura, who's apparently indefeatable, at least at this point, right? Indra's thrown his club at Vritrasura. Vritrasura caught it, with his left hand, I think. Was it left hand? Anyway, he caught it easily. And then he whacked Indra's elephant, Airavata, is it? Whacked him, and he was knocked backwards 14 yards. Well, I don't know if any of you have ever tried to hit an elephant, but hitting an elephant, even if you had a club, being able to move it backwards 14 yards, you're strong, right? And not only did he knock Airavata back 14 yards, but also he toppled him over with Indra on top. Right, so Indra's been thoroughly embarrassed. And you could imagine almost squashed by his elephant. Right, so he's worried. He's worried now because he's up against a substantial enemy, a substantial opponent. And not only that, he's chastised him for, for his materialistic mindset, which Indra knows, even Indra knows is wrong, because he's a devotee. So Indra is in pursuit of these three things at least: dharma, artha, and karma. At least he's a devotee and a practicing devotee. We could imagine. We can assume more elevated than just a karmi. Right? Those who endeavour materially for happiness, and then there are those like Indra. They're devotees. They adhere to the principles of dharma, but there's a motivation. They're more elevated than a karmi. I guess we've got karmi sinful and karmi pious. That's a good enough. There's a differentiation there. There's the karmi who's just interested in sense gratification but performs material activities, and there are those who are pious and perform karma as opposed to vikarma. And karma means good, pious activities. And Bhagavad Gita teaches us actually, explains to us or describes these different types of mentalities. Then there's so above the karmi is the jnani. Actually, above the karmi is the jnani and the yogi, right? Jnani is one who understands the futility of material pursuits. They have some knowledge. And that knowledge is, what is it? Yehi samspasaja boga dukkayonaya evate adyantavanta kuntaya na te shu ramate buddha. They're a little bit more introspective because they see the futility of material pursuits. They're pious, they're religious, but their focus is more on the cultivation of knowledge rather than on the acquisition of material facilities. And so they live a more renounced lifestyle with the goal of cultivating transcendental or spiritual knowledge. But of course, of the jnanis, there's those who focus on an impersonal understanding of the Supreme, and those who focus on the personal aspect of the Supreme. And that's more trending towards the devotee, right? Because there's the yogis also. But generally, the yogis perform their austerities and cultivation of knowledge and so forth to get mystic powers, right? And that way become influential and powerful. Whereas the jnanis cultivate knowledge to understand their spiritual identity and ultimately come to an understanding of their relationship with God. So, Indra represents this, a devotee, but a devotee who's more interested in comfortable life, yeah, or not necessarily comfortable, but certainly power, influence. Yeah. Now, it's interesting. Vritrasura says to Indra, the Supreme Personality of Godhead doesn't recommend. In fact, here the word is described here, in the translation it says forbids. And in the word for word it says it's interesting actually. In the English, in the translation, it's forbid, but in the word for word, it's vighatam, and it's ayasa vighatam asmat pati. So ayasa vighatam means this endeavor is the ruin of a devotee. That's interesting, right? Vigatam asmat patir vidate purushasya shakra. So the activities of a devotee that pursue this trivargika, these dharma, artha, kama, right? Pursuing those, says here, is the ruin of a devotee. Woo, that's interesting, isn't it? This is what Vritrasura is telling Indra. And he says here, but the real Bhagavat Prasad, right? The word here, this word here, Bhagavat Prasado. which is rarely achieved, durlabha, but is within the reach of the akinchana gochara. Interesting. And you know, it's very interesting, isn't it? The devotees who pursue, or anybody really who pursues economic development and sense gratification, why do they do that? Why do we do anything? But we work hard, we get money, then we spend that money on getting things that we think will make us happy. But what happens? Anybody become happy from working hard and enjoying sense gratification? Momentarily. Yeah, that's right, momentarily. And a devotee knows, here one day, gone the next. Right? How many of you here are paid on a weekly basis? Raise your hands. You get money every week. How many of you paid on a fortnightly basis? Okay. What about on a monthly basis? Monthly. Whoa. Must be getting a fair bit of money then, huh? How do you feel when the money goes into your bank account? How do you feel? Okay? Yeah, good. Woohoo! Especially if it's a monthly payment. Well, a few $1,000s goes in the bank balance goes up. Woohoo! Woohoo! Yeah. But what happens when the monthly mortgage payment comes out? How do you feel? Ugh. Gas, electricity. Wait till you get your electricity bill next quarter. They just put the electricity's just gone up. They haven't told us exactly how much it is, how much it's gone up, but we'll find out when we get the bill, right? And then how do you feel? Oh no, I've been cheated. Huh? So very interesting. A devotee generally disregards these things. You know, money comes in, okay, money's coming in. Money goes out, okay, money goes out. Right? How many of you have got children? Who's eating up all of your money? Who's eating the most of your money? And most of your children are young, right? Wait till they get to 15, 16, 17. Then they'll really become expensive. Because they want their own motor car, they'll be wanting their own petrol, or you'll be driving them around. You'll want them to have a car because you'll be sick of driving them around. As my friends tell me, I'm so sick of driving my daughter around. I just bought her a car. She could drive herself around. Right? Assuming they've turned 18. So, and Indra's, Vritrasura's pointing this out to Indra. Some of these facts of being too absorbed in, you know, working purely for material benefits, because material gains are always eroded by the coming and going of material existence, right? That's why sukha dukkha, or first instruction by Krishna, pretty much in the Bhagavad Gita, after you're not the body, you're a spirit soul, is the identifying with the material world means the coming and going. You know, at the moment it's winter time, very cold, right? Not very pleasant. But we have to tolerate it. And then summertime, what happens? It gets really hot. We have to tolerate it. So happiness and distress are part of material existence. So we shouldn't be too caught up with that. And in fact, those who have received Krishna's mercy, and this is why people are scared of associating with the devotees, because they know that Krishna's real mercy is that he takes everything away from the devotee. Right? That's his mercy, he takes it away. But the interesting thing is that a devotee, whether he's wealthy or poor or whatever, he's sama, right? Equipoised. Pandita samadashanaha. He accepts things, or titikshva. One has to be tolerant of the comings and goings. And a devotee is happy. Why? Not because he's pursuing material things, but because in all of his endeavours, or her endeavours in life, it's done in relationship to service to Krishna. And a devotee understands, what is it? Isavasyam idam savam yat kincha jagatam jagat tena chaktena bunjita magrida kasyasviddanam. Right? Nice verse. Everything animate and inanimate within the creation is owned and controlled by the Lord. And he sets aside everybody's quota. Right? So a devotee understands what I have is ultimately belongs to Krishna. Of course, the bank account's in my name, right? The car's registered in my name. So Krishna gives us facility to own and to utilise, but devotee understands the comings and goings of material existence ultimately ordained by Krishna. The facilities that we have, they're given to us by Krishna. And so in the cultivation of our spiritual pursuits, devotee understands that Krishna is giving everything and at the same time he's also taking away, right? And so we do our duty, we perform our activities, we work and we work and we play. Is that right?
Work hard, play hard.
Work hard, play hard. Yeah. But for the devotee, our play is chanting Hare Krishna, right? And or our recreation is cultivation of spiritual knowledge, spiritual understanding. So it's not that we give these things up necessarily, right? Because each one of us is going to be given a certain amount of material facility ordained by our past karma and our desires. It will come, right? And it doesn't mean that we have to just give it up senselessly or mindlessly, but rather when we understand that everything can be used in Krishna's service, ultimately it belongs to him, but we're given facility. And we understand the proper utilisation, then we can be equipoised in our understanding of who it belongs to ultimately and how it's, it's coming and going. This is the nature of the material world. But our real purpose in life is to cultivate that understanding of our original identity, and in that original identity, our relationship with Krishna, with God. And in that setting, one can be peaceful, actually. That's where the real peace comes from. And in that situation, then the comings and goings actually don't matter so much, because that's their natural consequences. And that's what we're seeing here with Vritrasura. Vritrasura knows that Indra will kill him, right? And because the weapon, Indra used his club, but he should have used the weapon that was made from the bones of Dadichi, right? Under the instructions of Lord Vishnu. And that's what Vritrasura was waiting for. Vritrasura knew that when Indra struck him with the weapon made of Dadichi's bones under the order of Lord Vishnu, that he would be sent back home, back to Godhead. Right? He would be destroyed ultimately. The body's bound for destruction, right? But he wasn't perturbed. He was actually looking forward to it. And that's that akinchana gochara, detached from everything. And even though, and we see this with Vritrasura, but even though the material facility is taken away, because the relationship with the Lord is firmly established in the heart and the mind and the activities of the devotee, he's happy. Well, what's one of the first symptoms of Shuddha Bhakti? One of the first symptoms that's observed in the character of a pure devotee, or somebody who's performing pure devotional service. What's the first item, Mahatma?
Strong faith.
Strong faith. Yeah, but that's not what we're looking for. That comes later. No, I'm thinking of the 6 characteristics of pure devotional service. What's the first one? Kleshagni, right? Freedom from distress, right? And what is it? Shubha. Auspiciousness. Yeah, auspicious. So the first thing that manifests in the heart of a devotee when he's engaged in devotional service is what? Effectively? Yeah, happy. Let's just say happy. Susukam kartam avyayam, right? Happy. He's happy. And doesn't want to stop doing service, even if it means that there's less material facility. Right? This is why people are scared of the Hare Krishnas. Oh no, if I become a Hare Krishna, I got to give up everything to God. Right? Everybody knows that. But the interesting thing is, for a devotee who has wealth, influence, whatever, he uses it in Krishna's service, and in that way he doesn't actually have to give it away, but he gives it to God, but is also God allows him to keep using it in his service, right? And so we see very wealthy devotees, right? Who's some example of wealthy devotees? One in particular. Ambarish, huh? Ambarish Maharaj. Although Prabhupada called his disciple, wealthy disciple, Ambarish. But that's telling. Ambarish Maharaj was the king of the whole universe, right? But he was a great devotee. And what would he do? Ambarish Maharaj is is one of the original members of ISKCON, in the sense that, in his characteristics, in his what did he do? Karo Hare Mandira Marjanadishu. Right? He would go to the temple, and what would he do? Make sure that his name was on the roster. Right? Karo Hare Mandira. He would go to the Hari Mandir. And what's the first thing he did? Marjanadishu. Cleaned the temple. It didn't mean that he'd have to give up his wealth or his position as the ruler and controller. But because he had the right mentality, and it's interesting, Prabhupada mentions here, even if one has material desires, one focuses on his devotional service, automatically they'll be taken care of. And one doesn't have to work hard. This is what Vritrasura is saying. You don't have to work hard for material facility. If you surrender to serving Krishna, he'll automatically supply those things anyway, and you don't have to worry about it. Right? How much do you worry about? Well, this would be interesting. Hands up those who've got a job. Again, just to confirm, we're not surrounded by lazy men. Do you worry about paying your rent or your mortgage? You worry about it?
If you can't, you worry about it.
Eh?
If you can't, you will worry about it.
Yeah, exactly, if you can't. Yeah. But most of us, if we're chanting Hare Krishna, we don't worry about these minor things that go on in life, because the devotee is happy and satisfied in his devotional service. And he knows that in the background everything's being sorted out by Krishna. And of course that's what Vritrasura is. Vritrasura is a unique example of devotional service. But probably not a devotee that we would follow. We follow his example in terms of his, but fighting with the demigods, that kind of thing, that's probably not what. Although we do have fights amongst the devotees. We have politics anyway, push and shove and whatever, right? So what happens is, for a devotee, they naturally become happy. Their life becomes auspicious automatically. Prabhupada makes the example, gives the example in the Nectar of Devotion how a devotee doesn't have to be non-violent, right? Doesn't have to cultivate non-violence, because automatically a devotee is automatically a vegetarian, say for example, the example that Prabhupada gives. Because he eats prasadam, he's automatically a vegetarian. And so that, auspiciousness naturally comes to and is part of the character of a devotee. And we see that here with Vritrasura. Vritrasura is quite a unique example of devotion. And so in that way, the devotees don't worry about material things more than they need to. It's not that we don't, we're so detached that we don't think about these things. And knowing or understanding that everything ultimately belongs to Krishna, then there's a concern about looking after Krishna's property, looking after Krishna's facility properly as part of a person's service that's appropriate. Bhaktivedanta Thakur in his, Manasa Deho Geho, Yogi two more, he says in that prayer that my house, my family, my possessions, these all belong to you, Krishna. And I'm your dog, right? I'm your dog. And I protect, because the dog will sit, people usually have a sign on their fence, beware of the dog. Because the dog's only about this big. But even if the dog's that big or this big, he will bark when somebody comes, right? To protect the family, to protect the house, to protect the owner's interests. Right? This is one of the characteristics of a dog. Dog has many good qualities. Cats, maybe not so many. Cats are pretty selfish characters. Dogs are a bit more faithful. My sister-in-law is worrying about her cat. Well, it's not her cat actually, it's a neighbour's cat. Jerry, his name's Jerry. At least we call him Jerry. Who knows what other people call him? And Jerry sets up shop in whoever's house he hangs around in, right? Whereas a dog will just stay put and he'll look after the owner's business or the owner's property. So Bhaktivedanta Thakur says, Krishna, I'm your dog and I'm here to protect your property and to protect your family. I'm here to look after your interests, right? And this is a form of renunciation. So devotees peaceful in that environment. We still have to manage household affairs and whatever, but doing it in that mood reduces the anxiety for a devotee. He's doing it for Krishna's pleasure more than he's doing. Well, automatically the devotee will experience pleasure by rendering service to Krishna in that way. So it's not that one necessarily has to give up things, but rather it's the mentality or the mood. And that's the characteristic that's really important here with Vritrasura. What's his mood? Iha yasya hare dasye. Iha. He's always thinking. His desire. Iha yasya hare dasye. What does that mean? His desire is always to serve. Right? Serve Krishna. We're always serving. Right? Service is natural to all of us. Right? Like sweetness is to sugar or wetness is to water. The characteristic of the living entity is to serve. Serve the mind's demands or serves, what is it? Vacho vegam, manasakroda vegam, jiva vegam, udarapasta vegam. We're being pushed by the urge to speak, the mind's demands, the tongue. The tongue is, if we can control the tongue, then we're a good way to making progress in our spiritual life. Because the tongue is for tasting and the tongue is for vibrating. Right? So, when those urges or those impetuses are engaged in, always engaged, Iha yasya hare dasya karmana manasa gira. Right? Actions, activities, physical activities, manasa, our thoughts, and gira, our speech, when it's all engaged in Krishna's service, then, what is it? Nicholas Vapyavastasu Jivan Mukta sa uchate. One is considered liberated, even in the material body. If the activities, the thoughts and the words of a devotee are all engaged in Krishna's service, then Rupa Goswami says, it's his opinion, that such a person is a liberated soul. Jivan Mukta, a liberated jiva. So, and this is the characteristic. This, if there's a characteristic that we want to emulate or to copy or to follow in Vritrasura's footsteps, that is this desire to always want to do service. Right? And for those who have that mood, you know, it's described how there are three types of devotees. Three types of devotees. The first is Nitya Siddha. What's Nitya Siddha? Yes. And then second is Sadhana Siddha. Right? Perfect as a result of sadhana. And then what's the third devotee? He's a neophyte, yes. But what is he? A beginner. What is a beginner devotee? Starts with S. Anybody know? Sadhaka. Yeah, practitioner. Practice. He's practicing. Sadhaka. Yeah. That's where we are. Or should be. Sadhaka. One who's practicing to be a devotee. Right? And that's where Shraddha, Sadhu Sangha, Bhajana Kriya, Anatta Nivritti. You know, to get to sadhaka, to get to sadhana siddha, right? One has to go through the different stages of sadhana. And of course, bhajana kriya means the practice of devotional service, but then also anatta nivritti, give up the unwanted things. This is pretty common. If you want to be successful at anything, if you want to be successful at say, any sport, for example, then there are things that you should do and there are things that you should give up, right? Go to bed early, eat the right kind of food, get up early, exercise, practice, whatever it is that you're doing, practice. Remain enthusiastic, remain determined, be patient. Same things. Same things apply to bhakti, sadhana. Yes. Yeah, well, if we get rid of the unwanted things, then we can start to get a taste out of what we do. Otherwise, we're going to be mixed up. We'll think, oh, I want to be a devotee, but oh, what about my money? What about my material facility? What about... Blah, 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 blah. And so that's why sadhana is important, chanting Hare Krishna, because and all of the other activities, devotional activities, because they purify the consciousness and they fine-tune that desire to serve. It's a subtle thing. But when that desire is always there to serve, then you see the symptoms of detachment start to manifest. Even though he has facility, he sees it as belonging to Krishna. And he or she uses it in Krishna's service. But this is the characteristic that Vritrasura is most exhibiting here, Prabhupada says. This desire to serve. This is his, and as a result of that, he's detached. There's a natural symptom that accrues to a devotee who's making spiritual advancement, is that they'll naturally become detached from things of the material world. Not that they give them up necessarily, but they're not attached to the comings and goings, which will be there. Okay, does anybody have any comments or questions on any of these points? Vritrasura, yes, we may not be at that point. But that again is you know, and Prabhupada makes a point that this ekanta, what is it? Ekanta, it's in the previous verse. Ekanta dhyam, this fixed meditation, fixed determination, comes from the performance of sadhana. Huh? This is what we basically, you know, this is our morning program. Rise early, chant Hare Krishna, worship the deities, associate with the devotees, hear the Bhagavatam, all these activities. Well, what we do effectively develops this mood of detachment that you see in Vritrasura in due course. Anything else? Any other comments or questions?
But why wouldn't you give up your body if you were certain of the outcome?
Sorry?
There'd be no doubt.
Yeah.
But why wouldn't you give up your body if you were certain of the outcome?
Well, you would be not just, at least you wouldn't be disturbed by it. Yes, and that's what's happening here with Vritrasura. And of course, Vritrasura is unique, there's no doubt about it. This story is it's a pretty far out story when you think about it. In fact, some of the stories in the Bhagavatam, many of them are pretty far out. But of course, special examples to help us learn what bhakti really is, right? The characteristics and the qualities of bhakti, and not necessarily the external characteristics, because externally he appears as a demon. That's why he's called Vritrasura. Right? And usually asuras are not devotees. Right? Which means, you know, that bhakti, devotional service, transcends the material. That bhakti is not dependent upon birth. You know, there was the Nityananda Vamsa coming after Lord Chaitanya, Prabhupada describes. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur describes the Nityananda Vamsa, those who are followers of Lord Nityananda. Was it Founder-Acharya? Also, they're his sons. But some of them deviated. They even though they were... And here's another one, an interesting one. A question. Krishna appeared for three purposes, right? Paritranaya sadhunam, vinashaya chaduskritam, dharma samstapa, right? To establish dharma, to kill the demons, and to protect the devotees, right? Now, out of those three activities, which one was the pastime of the Yadu dynasty destroying themselves? which was orchestrated by Krishna, right? What was it? Protecting the devotees, killing the demons, or establishing religiosity. That activity of removing the Yadavas, which out of those three, which one was it? Huh? Yes. Yes, it was. Not protecting the devotees because he killed them. Now, but why? Why did Krishna remove the Yadavas from the planet before his departure, pretty much, effectively, right? The Yadavas were removed prior to his departure. Why did he do that? Do you think? Huh? Yeah, but why? How was that saving everybody? Huh? Yeah. Yeah. But also they got a bit proud. They were proud of the fact that they were related to Krishna and proud of their... Yeah. Such so that they were causing problems. Right? What precipitated that pastime was their being offensive to, was it Narada Muni and Angira Rishi? Was it? Samba? They dressed Samba up as a girl and made him look like she was pregnant. And then they went to the sages and teased them, saying, "What will the child be, a boy or a girl?" Which is rude, right? You don't go to sadhus to work. And of course, that's what people do. They go to astrologers, brahmanas or whatever, and they want to find out, oh, can you tell me what's going to happen in the future? Right? And what does Krishna say in the Bhagavad Gita? What does Prabhupada say? Jamra, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadi, birth, death, old age, and disease. This is what's going to happen to everybody. Right? Who cares about the details? Doesn't matter. Yeah. So, even though they were related to Krishna and very powerful, still at the same time, there were characteristics that weren't actually devotional, and so therefore Krishna removed them. Let's get these guys out. They've done their service now, let's get them out of here. Very interesting. Huh? Okay, I think we should finish here. Who's feeling hungry? Huh? Yeah. Do you like puris? Which do you like, puris or halva? Both. Yeah, with sabji. Okay. Let's go for breakfast, otherwise somebody else will be honouring the prasadam and it won't be us. Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Bhaktivedanta ki jai, Hare Krishna.